Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back yet again.
Yes, and we see here a Melbourne Earthquake.
Wow.
You know, a while ago, actually for years, I've been mentioning every now and then that it hit me as I was studying throughout history at certain key time periods when there was a lot of unrest upon the planet that it seemed like the quote-unquote natural disasters would increase.
It does, and it was strange because Osboy just sent us some clippings of people who are very unrested here. And then here we have this. So
Yeah, this is a big one. And, 6.0, perhaps even stronger, because we know how they tend to downgrade things. And shallow, strong and shallow. That's the words for today. 6.0 quake near Melbourne, Australia. Tremors rattle. Southeast Australia, buildings heavily damaged. And there's multiple videos here to see. This is the country's biggest on record. And also, it's obviously one of the biggest cities, too. Beautiful area. And people are scared and people are angry.
yes, yes.
That's the other part of this. And our ability to manifest is quickening. And we had some amazing channelings yesterday and into this morning that were confirming that. The times are different. Everything is different. Things are speeding up. We're literally starting to dip our toes, so to speak, into getting out of that third density that we've been in and getting into fourth density in our waking state. As we're heading towards fifth density, at least a portion of the people on the earth, again, will be heading towards fifth density. If we were able to do things naturally without artificial flavoring and influence from the dark controllership of this planet, the vast majority would be, heading towards basically manifesting a heaven on earth, as we've said.
We would be able to bring that fifth density to us wherever we're at, but we're being waylaid. That's okay. You guys, we got this. We're going to keep moving forward.
So no reports serious injuries or worse. That's good. But it was so strong, it was felt as far away as Adelaide, about 500 miles, 800 kilometers away, as well as Sydney, more than 600 miles, 900 kilometers away. No tsunami threat, but definitely damage. And before we delve more into it, I want to thank everybody for their support over on Patreon. And so thank you,
Heather and Zeke, you guys. We really appreciate it. And during these times, they're very difficult. Everything counts. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, we definitely do appreciate it. Now, what's going on in Australia, as we know, and we've shared, the lockdown in Australia has been perhaps one of the most severe, if not the most severe one on the planet. And the resistance is growing. And, I, for one, can't blame them.
No, I can't blame them one bit. I'm really glad because these folks are up against a lot of I would call it brutality, really. I mean, they're really sticking their necks out when they go up against this system, and they're doing it anyway. They're working together, and I don't see any violence here. They're definitely standing up for themselves. They're protecting themselves. They're not being violent, but they're being stern, as they should be.
Yes, and we'll do a video on evolutionary later today after we get some errands taken care of. That will look at exactly what's happening around the globe as far as the way people are pushing back, because shortages in many fields are growing to extreme levels and interfering with the system. As we said, we got to get out of this system. This system is not a healthy system. How can anybody even think it's healthy? Look at the condition of the planet. Look at how we treat the planet. And this is part of that journey to 5D and recognizing the oneness of everything. We are all cells in the planet. So obviously, things that are poisonous to the planet are poisonous to us. So why do we have all these toxins and poisons all around us every single day? And whether we're talking about nuclear power plants or GMO foods or things being released in the sky, 239 admitted times that in the US the populace was sprayed with things just to see what would happen. And this is the mindset we have. I think there are a lot of people waking up to the fact that what we are seeing, it is so reminiscent of 1930s Germany.
It is, and it's really disturbing too. It's one of those things where you don't want to, you don't even really want to recall it, acknowledge it, but we all kind of know what happens if we ignore things like this. If we ignore it, it'll get out of control. If we ignore our sovereignty, we'll lose our sovereignty, and that's kind of how it works. It's a general rule. Whatever you ignore goes away, so we cannot just look away from what's happening and do nothing.
One thing, excuse me, guys. One thing I've noticed about the police and the forces that are being used to clamp down on any expression that's being put out there by the public is that they tend to seem to be getting more and more, quote unquote, stormtrooper-ish. Think about the facial covering thing. What does facial coverings do? Multiple things. Well, we're told, well, you got to have facial coverings right now because of the plague upon the land. Yeah, but it also takes away the individuality where you could actually see another's face. It brings it to that point where it's almost becoming a video game, where again, desensitizes people, dehumanizes, desensitizes.
Very much so.
And we're seeing a very, very much stormtrooper-ish mentality going on in places of power or apparent power, but the real power lies with the people. And we had channelings last night coming through from the Galactic Federation and also from Set, who is known to most as ISIS. They're looking at the situation, they're watching the situation, and the real power lies with us. And this is why everything you're seeing here is acts of fear. Acts of fear. They fear us. They fear us waking up. It's the biggest fear they have. Their party's almost over. Mm-hmm. And so they're cracking down more than ever. As we see here, again, even those helmets are looking so stormtrooper.
I know. And just think about the predictive programming and how far this predictive programming has gone back. And then you can apply that to this and then look at the predictive programming of today and apply that in X amount of years from now. So they're definitely showing us what they're doing through the movies.
They are, man. Everything from Star Wars to the Matrix. By the way, there's a new Matrix coming out in December. I'm sure there'll be a lot of little clues going on there. It's just, it's right out there. We talked about I Am Legend. What happens in I Am Legend? Well, let's see. There is, great news. We found the cure for cancer. This is in the movie I Am Legend. Will Smith, he thinks he's the last person alive, but he's not. There's other survivors. Well, the cure for cancer, gets spread out there to the populace, and before you know it, there is no populace. And, and what do you have? You have basically a zombie apocalypse of sorts. What you're seeing is pretty shocking. As you see here, this from the Daily Mail. Lots of protests going on. Rubber bullets being used. And we had talked about that construction melee that happened too.
I know. There's just so many things that, look at this. This is so horrible what they're doing. And I just can't, I cannot get over this stormtrooper stuff. I just can't get over it. It is so horrible.
Well, unfortunately, we know there are those people that are addicted to power and they'll do anything. But, Yeah, when governments are supposed to be about, protecting people's rights and the individual, and yet the collective at the same time, what we're seeing here is most definitely it doesn't jive with what we've been brought up believing. And see what I mean about this? Now we're just being able to see eyes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's new technology out where that's all you need to see, because each eye, like each fingerprint, is unique. And so, there is technology out there that I'm sure, well, actually, we've gotten that it is being tested by the powers that be. All they need to do is to see your eye to know who you are. But at the same time, this depersonalizes and dehumanizes.
Yeah, and that's really one of their ingredients that they use to keep control. Dehumanizing is one of their tools, and we cannot allow that to happen. We have to keep continuing to cultivate that loving energy, that nurturing energy, at the same time stand up for ourselves. And I know it's a delicate balance, it's a difficult balance, but when you are centered and you go within, then you go out into the world, you're able to find that balance when it's needed quicker.
Yeah, most definitely. And so I asked both last night, the Galactic Federation, and I asked also ISIS, quoting the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna's talk to Arjuna, and basically saying, we're told sometimes we have to confront evil. We know we have to confront evil, and you do it in a peaceful way, and you don't want to become evil yourself. What do you do when evil, overwhelms the people? Again, most important thing is to make the system and everything that they have as far as their control grid irrelevant. How do we make it irrelevant? Let me hear what you guys think. How do we make their system and all the different tools that they're using to try to control the population irrelevant?
Right.
Let's share our thoughts on that. Let's share our inspirations.
And yeah, I think that's really going to spur some people, because you guys always have great information in the comments. We love to see the comments of your guys' idea. I mean, you guys are so awake. We have some of the most awake people I've ever seen.
One other thing I want to share too that we caught sight of late last night was the fact that there were certain channels that might surprise you that were starting to be, uh, demonized, as we've been talking about. So there's more topics that are going to be topics that you can't touch on in this system. And this was actually channels that are all about living off the land, hunting, fishing, things like that, survival type channels. Those, I mean, seriously, some of them, 250,000 or more subscribers, all of a sudden they're demonized. And we know, again, one of the main tools is money.
Mm-hmm.
It's money. And that's one of the things that keeps people in line. And so, okay, now you can't learn about being able to survive, say, in a grid down situation. You can't learn about living off the land. You can't learn about, hunting and fishing. And I understand we probably have a pretty high proportion of vegetarians. But, you might have some vegetarians that would stay vegetarian, even if it meant starving. And then you have others that would resort to having some fish now and then if they could catch a fish. Or perhaps even they would go even farther. If you really got into a starvation situation, would you be out there trying to get a rabbit or a deer, something along those lines? Well, I think it says a ton that there's channels that's what they're all about. How to live off the land and be self-sufficient. And now that's the next wave of demonization going on here. I'm sure it's going to be the same thing with the homesteading channels after that.
Right.
Off-grid and homesteading. Why? I mean, come on, it's getting, if it isn't obvious now, I mean, it should be obvious. It was obvious when, to me, it was obvious, way back in the end of 2019 what was really happening, because they told us, they've told us how it's going to look and what's going to happen, and it's all going down according to script.
It is. And, this is one of the reasons why we have to be so extremely careful, because it's happened to us too. And just for showing information that everybody else could see anyway, we just highlighted a little bit and we got in, that kind of trouble. So, yes, we're very careful and very cryptic, and we do appreciate you guys working with us.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at even their numbers, that's deaths. More people probably lose their lives walking backwards through through an intersection every day. And not to trivialize it, but to say realistically, when you look at the response and everything that's happening, there's a term, disproportionate force. And I'm going to really click off of that really fast, but I will give you guys the link, because that is all about disproportionate force being used. And this is a post saying that there's undercover people, provocateurs, trying to inflame. So, is a bigger thing going on here, part of that desire to create unrest. Create unrest. Why? Well, what happened on September 11th, 01? And then what was shortly enacted? The Patriot Act. The world's never been the same. And it's never gone backwards, where things get reeled back. Okay, situation, seems to be under control right now. Okay, well, we'll go back to making it illegal to wiretap and listen in on every single conversation. No, that didn't happen. So here you see police are banning media from doing live aerial coverage of the protests. Wow, didn't we have number 46 stop the drones overflying the migration influx into Texas? Do you think these things are all connected? Of course they're all connected. Media needs to get permission, and they must wait at least an hour to broadcast it. Now the illusion. We've had this illusion. The illusion's, it's a shattered mirror now. The mirror is totally shattered. Now there are some still that will not wake up. They're just going to stick their head in the sand or up their ass, and that's going to be what it is. They're going to be doing that little la 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 la. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't see what's going on.
Plug in the ears with the fingers and la 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 la. And a lot of it is because people, you're asking them to ditch a lifetime of what they think they know to be true. And for them, for whatever reason, at this time in their life, they're just not ready to take all of this information and set it aside and learn the truth. They're just not ready. So if you are ready, then you need to be that pillar wherever you're at. So when people like that do want to learn something, they have someone to go to.
We have to, again, this is a real fine line to operate here, because we want to keep expanding in the love and sending out the vibrations of compassion and that heart-centered living, recognizing the oneness that's underlying everything that will be the reality when we get out of this system. Yet at the same time, the darkness is pushing so hard, it's threatening to overwhelm many all across the globe. And so, this is one of the things I've been meditating on the most. What does this look like? What does this look like? Because, when we look at throughout history, there's one revolution after another that starts out with good intentions and ends up basically the same or worse as history goes on. And that's because of the corruption of the system. And there's so many good movements and things that get started that get waylaid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've talked about the corruption and the changing of even scriptures, and even whole religions have lost their way. And it's sad, but it's true. And again, it's because of the control grid that's around the planet. There are those that brought up the fact that, you know, many have said we live on a prison planet and we don't even realize it. Many people don't realize that we live on a quote unquote prison planet. And we've gotten from the galactics, for those of you that watched yesterday's video, that this cycle has happened not 5 times like, you know, the Hopi fifth world. You could times that and add many, many zeros behind it, how many times this has happened. Thankfully, the time period that this darkness is upon the land is much shorter than the time period that it's good. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, as we've shared, you know, in the Golden Age, the Silver Age, and even in the Bronze Age, we're not subject to the type of tyranny that we're subject to right now. But this is tyranny. There's no other label for it. It's absolute tyranny. And why is it going on like this right now? Because they're losing control. Absolutely, they're losing control. And the fact is, they're terrified of us because we could go to new heights and we're going to be gaining new abilities that they fear. It's simple fear. This is all a fear-based reaction.
I know we're watching a show right now that depicts a little girl who's very advanced in her abilities, and she can do some pretty serious stuff, and to the point where she literally would not be able to be stopped by anyone if she, you know, if her and her abilities were completely unleashed. We're coming to that point too, where once we realize who we are and what we can do, and we'll be turned out free. Wow, we can really control our world. We'll be able to control those around us, and we won't be able to be told what to do. We will have freedom. We'll have true freedom. And that's the fear. That's what they fear the most.
See, but you know, with great power comes great responsibilities. So the soul must be refined before being able to discover those type of things, so that it would not inflict its will on others. Everything, as we've said in this world, is back assward, mm-hmm. and is inverted and is intertangled and so distorted. Many people have found that out. Many people are, again, that person that's doing the la la la, I can't hear you thing. And, you know, because of fear again too, you know, they don't want to face what we're going to go through. But, you know, we have to be brave, and you can't sugarcoat this. There's going to be conflict, and there's going to be a protracted period, may not last relatively long, where we are literally, you know, clawing to survive and to get to that finish line. As we awaken and as our powers and abilities increase, and again, there's CIA and FBI studies, you know, that are over 50, 60 years old that show that when the magnetospheres decline accelerates and more cosmic rays come in, our DNA mutates. Again, we have been told that we only operate on about 10% of our brain capacity. That's directly correlated with the 90% junk, quote unquote, DNA. The junk DNA is waking up. Our abilities to utilize our brain are increasing. And again, we're not limited to the brain. The brain is kind of, think of it as a capacitor of sorts, you know. There is so much information out there in the web, but if you're operating on an 8 gigabyte, you know, an 8 millibyte system, and I'm not a computer geek, but if you guys know what I mean, if you're operating on a system that's so limited, you wouldn't know all the information that's out there. Well, we're getting uploaded and upgraded to such a high degree that there's so much information that's going to be able to flood through us that it's mind-blowing, you know. So if we look at this from a DNA point of view, it's almost like we're going to go through a period of rapid growth that's going to equate for us going from say, the year 0 AD to the year 3000 AD, in the blink of an eye, the changes that are happening. And they're terrified of this because, they are stuck in their own endless loop they cannot escape from. But, they've made their choices, and, so to speak, they've, allowed themselves to lose their soul, so to speak, to gain the world. This temporary little world, temporary. This is temporary in the big scheme of things. This is so much just a little blip, again, when you look at the endless life of a soul. The eternal truth of who we really are and what we really are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's for whatever reason they've chosen to stay in their glitch. For them, it's comfortable. They like it. They enjoy it. And we're moving past that. And just like in any bad relationship, the most dangerous time comes when the other person is done and they want their freedom and they're willing to do what it takes to get it. So this is where we just have to find our center, and we have to find our strength and continue on, move forward.
Yeah, so we could leave them behind in their dystopian Groundhog's Day,
Mm-hmm.
that they can relive for eternity, that just nonstop conflict, divisiveness, fear, hatred, and we shall move on to bigger and better things. But we have to basically get out of the system and wake up the world right now, so we can move as many towards the light as possible. So we see a strong and shallow 6.5 quake hits near the coast of Nicaragua. There's been quite a bit of pretty good size activity lately. And this epicenter was located about 50 miles west-southwest of Corinto. Population about 19,000. About 270,000 people were living within 62 miles of here. No tsunami risk involved with this one. And there was another quake too that was pretty big, 6.6, and this is in Chile, right off the coast of Chile again. About 1 million people living within 62 miles of this one. Again, this one, luckily, we don't have fatalities, here either. But there's definitely an uptick going on right now with what we're seeing volcanic-wise as well, obviously. As you see, a new volcano mouth emerges on the La Palma area, Canary Islands. And, there's a 40-foot wall of lava that's destroying everything in its path, heading towards the ocean. Pretty sad. There's been hundreds of houses destroyed. So far, no major loss of life besides the plants that are in the way that can't get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
As we see here, new fissure opens. La Palma volcano continues to erupt. It was showing in this video, basically, it looked like a pool was a pot of boiling water overflowing, as you can see there. Pretty wild. This is how nature remakes herself. Yet what we got going on here, as well as with this uptick, is, we've gotten from the guides, this is artificially flavored. And again, when they get stifled in one area, they'll try something else.
Right. They don't give up. They keep going. They have plenty of tricks up their sleeve because they've done this before.
They certainly have, and how many times is a big question. And as we've shared, the galactics say this particular planet, it's happened more times, it goes back farther than they have written records of. Volcanic activity at La Palma more explosive, as you see here again. Lots of videos to see, and again, the dangerous toxicity there. When we look at the actual significant quakes in the last 30 days, quite a few. And when you get a lot of quakes like this, you start to forget some. But over here we had that 7.0. You remember that one over by Acapulco, and then we see the 6.5 in Nicaragua, 6.2 in around Argentina, and the 6.4 over in Chile. And then we come over to the 6.3 Kermadec Islands, and this is the one we were just talking about over there in Australia. So definitely activity increasing, it seems. We're an uptick, but hey, with the technology that's out there, anything's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Australia in for a weekend cold front after late heavy snowfalls up to 11 inches in 36 hours. And we had an amazingly gorgeous morning with no humidity. It was like so crisp and clear. And our high temperature is only going to be around 80 today, which was definitely a little bit of relief.
Mm-hmm.
Meteor fireball seen over Shanghai, China, and all these, fireballs. Well, we got Xer ships. They're not. These are not rocks. They're ships. And check out. I'll give you guys all the links. And as we know, one of the big things is going to be the increase in food prices. And it was interesting too. We saw a lot of comments. We've seen a lot of people saying, you know what? Never had a garden before. Got one now.
Right? And they're working on it. That's great.
Yeah, corn rebounds, U.S. crop ratings decline, wheat gains. And here we see China is digging in their heels. Corn imports jumped 221%. So, again, what should I do? Well, what should you do as far as like getting your family prepared? Make sure you can survive without going to the store for at least, you got to go with at least 6 months that the government told us years ago. They've kind of, again, hinting, more than hinting, they're flat out disclosing so no negative karma will come. And, I would say, even longer. If you could work towards being, and we do have friends, there's a friend in North Carolina. I could think of 2 friends in North Carolina that could probably survive for 10 to 20 years. Literally. They have entire basements and storage rooms loaded with long-term survival food. Now they're obviously financially better off than most people, but as I've shared with you guys too, I think Cindy and I are now to the point where as long as we could grow, a little bit of, say some bell peppers, some jalapenos, we'll get some onions, scallions, things like that going. Well, we got the rice and the beans and the lentils and the flour and things like quinoa and other still cut oats. We could make it for probably 18 months, maybe.
Yeah,
I'd say.
I think so.
I think 18 months wouldn't be uncomfortable. It'd be nicer to get 3 to 4 years in, then we could get past that 2025 hump.
Right.
Because we do think that things will really start to swing into our power, basically, at that point. So yeah, and it's starting. It's starting. The quicker people wake up, the better off we are. We have to wake up people. That's the number one thing. So make sure you are subscribed to both channels. Make sure you do thumbs up if you think this is helpful, and share everywhere. Wake up people in droves. We have to. This is all of our duty, because the sooner we could wake up the masses, the sooner we could get to a critical juncture, the quicker the control grid falls apart and we start manifesting a positive reality.
Right. And we are the ones we've been waiting for. So it's on us. We can do this.
Yes. Thank you guys for being part of the family again. Thank you for your support on Ko-Fi, Patreon. If you need to make an appointment with us, it's evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com or EEARTS@protonmail.com. Typically, we have usually I'd say 10-day to 2-week time frame to get somebody in for energy consultation, astrology charts, etc. God bless, guys. Namaste.
Namaste.